Good morning, everyone. My name is Heidi Fleury, and I'm a program specialist with the Western Montana Conservation Commission. And hopefully you are meaning to be here at our EPA grant programs partner Q&A. Next slide, please. The purpose of our meeting and the agenda, this is a partner Q&A to give all of our partners a chance to ask any specific questions on the programs or projects that you might be applying for through our septic and stormwater funding. We will answer questions as best as we can, but we do ask that if you can, put your questions in the chat. And then complex questions, we might not be able to type into the chat, or we might need to talk about more. So staff are always available to answer any additional questions you might have after this meeting. So we're going to take about 30 minutes to go over and give a refresher of our grant programs for anyone who's been at our other partner engagement meetings. And then we will have about an hour to answer any questions, and we have a full hour. If we don't need that full hour, we'll give that time back to you guys, but we do have a full hour, so this will go until 11:30 if it needs to. Next slide, please. So we're just going to start off with a quick little icebreaker. Here's a poll. Which of the programs are you here for today? We do have 4 different programs, as you can see there.
And I think I have to wait until everyone responds to end the poll and share the results. So I'll give another 30 seconds for folks to fill that out.
Thanks, Emily. We're trying to get a little creative here with our meetings and use these polls, and we're all still kind of learning. Okay. I'm sure all of you can see the results of this poll. I would say at our last meeting, we had more people interested in the septic programs. And at this meeting, we have a few more people interested in our stormwater programs. So that's really exciting. Okay, next slide. And then we are hoping that you can put what organization you're from and where you are located. And is this one we're going to share, Emily, or is this just for us to gather this info so we know who's at our meeting?
I think this is just for us. I'm happy to share if folks are interested, but I think this is mostly for our knowledge.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, just so everybody knows, this won't be a poll that we share, but we're just trying to see who's at the meeting and where you're at. The Western Montana Conservation Commission, as you might think, serves Western Montana. Okay, I think we can go to the next slide. So for those of you who don't know much about us, our purpose is to protect and improve the quality of Western Montana's aquatic resources. So the Western Montana Conservation Commission is an attachment of DNRC. We have staff that are all DNRC or state employees, and then we have a commission that has 34 members. So our commission is made up of people from the private sector, the public sector, legislators, non-government organizations. So we have a really diverse commission that works on different water quality issues in Western Montana. Next slide, please. So some of the ways that we work to support this mission, we work in aquatic invasive species. We are the lead industry outreach entity in Western Montana, and we host a Big Sky Watershed Corps member that goes out and talks with different private business owners about keeping aquatic invasive species out of our watershed. We also do education and outreach work. We work with partners to host meaningful events. Just next week, we're co-hosting an event with the Lake County Conservation District. It's a septic homeowner education event in Polson on Wednesday. So we have different education and outreach that we support for water quality. And then we also strive to collaborate and facilitate with all the partners in Western Montana. And that looks kind of like today. We're convening a meeting of partners to talk about some different water quality projects in our area. And we really hope to proactively address water quality concerns at the commission. And this is kind of how we're doing it. You know, we're hosting programs, we're hosting education, we're getting everybody talking about the things that are going on in our communities. And if you want to learn anything else about WMCC, we have a really great website. It's listed there on that slide, westernmtwaters.com, but you can learn all sorts of stuff about us. But today we are going to focus more on these grant programs. So next slide, please. Well, you heard about some of the work we do and how we do it. These are the people that get the work done. I am Heidi Fleury, like I mentioned. We have Kristen Jordan, who's also a grant program specialist. And we have Krista Lammers, who's our other grant team administrative specialist. So for this EPA funding, we have 3 specific staff that are hired to focus on it, 2 program staff and 1 administrative staff. So that's exciting. We have staff to help people who are looking at our programs. And once awards are made, we have staff to help people manage the grants. And then our other staff, Casey Lewis is our executive director. Emily Henry is a program coordinator, as well as Kelly Hendricks. And then we have Stephanie Murphy, who's our communications coordinator. And all of the wonderful communications that you see, all the cool designs, that's all her. So we're really lucky to have a full staff of people who can work on programs and all sorts of issues. Next slide, please. So today we are here again to talk about our stormwater and septic leachate toxics reduction competitive grant programs. We do have 4 different grant programs, and we are just going to hit the high points on those grant programs. And then we'll go through some of the specifics of holding a grant contract with us and eligibility. And then we'll go through timelines of applications. And then after that, we'll go on to the questions. So if anybody does have a question along the way that you just would love to ask right away, we're fine with that. If you're just able to use your raise hand function, we can answer that if it makes sense. Okay, next slide. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit more about our septic leachate programs. The first one is the septic system replacement and sewer connectivity grant. Next slide. So we have $238,000 set aside for this. The maximum award amount is $80,000. So we don't have a ton of these grants, but we're really excited to work with different communities because we think they're really important grants. And they're specifically to support projects that benefit local water quality by helping replace septic systems or connecting people to municipal sewer services. And so some of the example projects that we have been hearing about and thinking about, and some of the reasons this program came about, there are some resident-owned communities that are working to hook up to municipal services, but there are also private individuals that are looking to hook up to municipal services. And we're excited to work with different organizations that are looking to help out with these folks. I have a couple of examples of what these projects might look like. A few years ago in Eureka, they upgraded their water and sewer treatment facility, and they were able to run the main line out and hook up individual homeowners and individual properties. And then I was also at a conference recently, and I heard about a nonprofit watershed organization that helped host a septic replacement cost share for low-income residents. And it seemed like a really beneficial program, and it's kind of exactly what we had been thinking about for these funds. So there are a couple of different ways to look at the funds, hooking up, but they all involve hooking people up to municipal systems or upgrading and replacing septic systems. Next slide, please. Our second septic leachate pot of funding is the Residential Septic System Education and Maintenance Grant. So this one is for $500,000, and the maximum award amount is $50,000. And then for all of our grants, there is a 25% non-federal match required. I didn't mention that on the last slide, but you probably read it. So this program's purpose is to develop or expand residential septic maintenance programs and provide cost shares, outreach, and programming to different homeowners or professionals to learn more about septic system education and maintenance. This can take the form of homeowner education and outreach events and cost shares. The example we have is the Lake County Conservation District and the Flathead County Conservation District. For the past 3 years, they've been running a septic pumping cost share. So they've been covering about half the cost of homeowners pumping their septic systems and using those contacts to give more information to these homeowners about septic systems. They also host community events. So this is really a kind of an education and outreach program, cost share for homeowners kind of grant. There is also the opportunity to use these funds to create professional development opportunities for either natural resources employees in the area, engineers, watershed groups. We have funding that could help with anybody learning more about septic maintenance, because septic leachate is an emerging issue as well as a long-lived issue in Montana. So another example of a program that we've heard about is with the Little Bitterroot Lake Association. They have a septic education and assessment program where they hire someone to go out door to door and talk with owners of homes around Little Bitterroot Lake to discuss their septic systems and what homeowners know about it. So we have a lot of really neat examples of what you could do with this funding. Again, the maximum amount is $50,000, and we have a $500,000 cap. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kristen.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Excellent, thank you. Yeah, so as Heidi's mentioned, my name is Kristen Jordan, and I am a grant program specialist The difference between Heidi and Maya's job is geographical. She'll largely be working with folks north of Missoula, and I'll largely be working with folks south of Missoula. And today I'm going to introduce our residential and community green stormwater infrastructure grant. Next slide, please. So just to start and make sure we're all on the same page, stormwater includes any runoff from any surface. So we're going to talk about roof runoff, road runoff, and any other surface where rain or snow collect and drain. For this grant program, it's for residential and community green stormwater infrastructure implementation. The goal is to provide eligible entities with the resources and support necessary to develop new or existing rain gardens, rain barrels, or other applicable programs for residents and communities. And we do have a lot of examples in the slide that I didn't reference specifically. The total amount of funds available are $245,000, and grant amounts are flexible, ranging from small to the maximum of $50,000. And as Heidi's already mentioned, this grant also requires a 25% non-federal grant match. Applications that incorporate programmatic development activities will be ranked more highly than those that include one-time education and outreach activities. This is because the program development shows sustainability beyond the grant dollars spent, ensuring ongoing public education and outreach activities. We want to ensure that pre and post program surveys are implemented with any program so we can track knowledge and behavioral changes relevant to your programs, and we will absolutely help you all do this. The WMCC staff are also developing stormwater toolkits consisting of materials that awardees may use to develop, advertise, and implement their program as capacity permits. This slide's examples illustrate the types of projects grant applications can include for a program development proposal. Grant awardees will be expected to engage and educate communities about toxic pollution from stormwater and present participants with the option of taking the stormwater stewardship pledge to garner long-term behavioral change commitments to reduce toxic reduction actions. All right, next slide, please. Thank you. So this is another grant program, and I was actually really excited to see the poll results, and a lot of you are interested in this grant program, which I think is a really exciting one. I mean, they're all exciting, but this one's going to be really neat. It is the Showcase Green Stormwater Infrastructure Project Grant. So, you know, the previous grant was for smaller projects. Oh, thank you. Sorry. Thanks for shifting the slides. The last program is for smaller projects to implement green stormwater infrastructure, but this grant opportunity will support awardees in planning, design, and construction of Showcase Green Stormwater Infrastructure projects. These projects will be designed to mitigate stormwater pollution and reduce runoff while showcasing additional co-benefits of GSI, ensuring co-benefits and opportunities for public engagement. There's $2.2 million available for 2 grants at $1.1 million apiece. These grants also require 25% non-federal match. We do recognize that projects of this nature and scale will likely cost more than $1 million and encourage applicants to explore additional funding sources if that's the case for them. For the purposes of this grant, green stormwater infrastructure means any stormwater management techniques with the primary goal of preserving, restoring, mimicking, or enhancing natural hydrology. Green stormwater infrastructure includes, but is not limited to, methods of using soil and vegetation to promote soil percolation, evapotranspiration, and filtering, or the harvesting and reuse precipitation. The projects listed on the slide are generally representative of what can be done with these grant funds. If you don't see something similar to what you have in mind, please reach out to us and we'll have a chat and see if your project does fit within our grant parameters. Projects that provide various nature-based recreation and other co-benefits in addition to stormwater treatment and flood control will be ranked higher. For example, stormwater parks are community facilities that treat stormwater from a larger area, like a regional stormwater facility, and provide a recreational opportunity, like a park, trail, open space, community garden, etc. Projects will be required to have an educational and or interpretive signage. All right, next slide, thank you.
That's me. I'm here to talk a little bit about the general grant requirements that are in our guidelines. I'm Krista. I'm the grant admin for these programs, and I work very closely with Heidi and Kristen, and just want to reaffirm we're all here to help and answer questions, so feel free to reach out anytime. Um, Our project guidelines were developed for the 4 competitive grants you see listed here. The guidelines were refined through a 30-day public comment period to ensure that the grant programs are accessible to you, meet needs in your communities while meeting the goals of WMCC, which are first, community research and education through conducting comprehensive research to understand baseline knowledge of residents in our service footprint regarding toxic pollution from stormwater and septic systems. Second, reducing stormwater toxics by implementing green infrastructure projects to reduce runoff and mitigate pollution. And third, reducing septic leachate toxics through recognizing the impact of septic systems on water quality, especially in areas with dispersed urbanization. The program aims to incentivize proper septic system maintenance. So as you work through your applications for these programs, WMCC staff are happy to talk to you about your project ideas and provide guidance at any time. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We believe that partnerships are the key to putting this funding to work in our communities, and WMCC will be with you every step of the way from now to application through closeout of your projects. And you can access those grant guidelines. You can see there on our website. There's a QR code. So, program funding area. Applicable grant projects must be implemented in Western Montana, west of the Continental Divide. Table 1 on page 6 of the guidelines provides a list of eligible cities, towns, conservation districts, counties. Portions of some cities, counties, and conservation districts are also eligible, but this is not to say that only cities, towns, conservation districts, and counties are eligible entities for these programs. This just provides the geographical area where projects must be implemented west of the Continental Divide. So please, if you have questions about that, contact us and we can work through it a little more. Eligibility. We're excited to share that the eligibility for these grants is very broad, from government organizations to nonprofits, as well as educational organizations. This breadth of eligible entities provides a lot of opportunity for varied entities to utilize these funds in ways that are tailored to their community's needs. You'll see a detailed list of eligible entities on pages 4 and 5 of the guidelines. These grants provide broad eligibility, making funding accessible to many organizations as well as many local governments. Just another reminder, you'll see throughout this presentation that applicants must have a unique entity ID and an active SAM.com registration. These do take some time but cost nothing. So we suggest starting the process now if you don't already have these things. Applicants must also be registered with the Secretary of State, Montana Secretary of State, and a reminder that all of the grants will require a 25% non-federal match. When you look on page 21 of the guidelines, this is our granting policy. So WMCC uses DNRC grant agreements and processes to delineate roles, responsibilities, and safeguards to ensure effective implementation of funded projects while adhering to legal and regulatory requirements. For many of you, these documents and processes will be familiar: DocuSign, MEPA, quarterly financial report, templates. If not, that's okay. We're here to help you work through these requirements so you can get out into your communities and do the important work that you do. MEPA and permitting of projects. WMCC requires compliance with the Montana Environmental Policy Act, or MEPA, for all funded projects. Now, I may have heard a collective sigh at the mention of MEPA, but remember, if you just ask yourself, will my project involve groundbreaking activities? And the answer is yes. We'll start a simplified MEPA form during the application process and evaluate any further assessment needed. So no panic necessary. WMCC staff are here to help you navigate the process, including the MEPA details, so you can focus on getting your project up and running in your community. While we're here to support you, making sure that you have the necessary permits for your project is a vital part of your project success. So please keep us in the loop with copies of those permits during your project time. All right, let's talk a little bit about cost principles. With the opportunity for many unique projects, allowable costs will vary from organization to organization. This is just a short list of allowable and ineligible costs. You can also consult the Federal Uniform Guidance, also known as the CFR 200s, as well as chat with us if you have questions about these. Additionally, these programs are reimbursement-based programs. Recipients will pay for expenses up front and receive reimbursement for eligible costs from WMCC. You'll see in the guidelines under each program are lists of eligible and ineligible expenses related to the specific programs. WMCC staff are here to support you. And if you have questions about eligible costs, just contact us. And now I'll pass it over to Kristen for a little talk about application ranking.
Thank you. Yes, so application ranking, pretty standard with almost any grant you'll ever apply for. We are currently developing our ranking criteria. It will include standard grant ranking parameters, including application completeness and responsiveness criteria. Specifically, we will be looking at project abstracts, program narrative, work plan, timeline, budget, and budget narrative. Less standard criteria that will also be considered are sustainability of the project beyond spent grant funds, if the project has a strong educational programming and outreach component, and whether the project addresses environmental justice. What is environmental justice? Well, we got our funds from the EPA, and part of the condition of spending these funds is that they address environmental justice, and so we're passing that requirement on to our awardees. And environmental justice is the just treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of income, race, color, national origin, tribal affiliation, or disability, in agency decision-making and other federal activities that affect human health and the environment, so that people, one, are fully protected from disproportionate and adverse human health and environmental effects, including risks and hazards, including those related to climate change, the cumulative impacts of environmental and other burdens, and the legacy of racism or other structural or systemic barriers. And two, have an equitable access to a healthy, sustainable, and resilient environment in which they live, play, work, learn, grow, worship, and engage in cultural and subsistence practices. It's a bit of a mouthful, so the EPA does have a lot of information on what environmental justice is and examples of how it can be implemented into project proposals. And you can find that information by doing a simple internet search for EPA and environmental justice. We will provide the ranking criteria before the application period opens so that applicants can write specifically to them. And that's it for ranking. Thank you.
All right, let's talk application and award timelines. I just wanted to thank you all again for sharing your time with us today. And we really appreciate your questions and feedback about how we can better serve you throughout our preparation for the application process. Discussions like today help us at WMCC create accessible grant programs that empower our partners to create and execute projects in our Western Montana communities. So thank you again. Eligible entities will be able to apply for each grant type in early 2025. We're expecting to have those open in January, and we then expect awards to occur in spring of 2025. Each program has a set amount of available funds, and we will hold grants open until all of the money has been awarded in each grant program category. These funds originated from an EPA grant awarded to WMCC, and that EPA grant sunsets in 2029. Therefore, recipients will be able to spend the funds from the time of disbursement through December 2028 and possibly into March of 2029. Some projects may plan to spend their funds up front, and others may plan to spend their funds throughout the grant time period. There's no requirements for that other than funds must be spent ending in December 28, maybe March 2029. None of these grants have a minimum award amount, so we can fund eligible projects from very small amounts up to the specified maximum amount that you see in the guidelines for each program. And a little bit more of a specific grant award timeline here. You'll see the top is a review cycle 1 for the grants, and then the bottom, the blue, is a review cycle 2. We'll have this posted on our website as well, and funds will be dispersed on a rolling basis until all funds for each program are awarded, as I said. Our plan is to have 2 application cycles for review. Applications will open early 2025, and the first cycle review will begin in spring 2025, followed by the first award announcements. After award announcements, probably in the summer of 2025, WMCC will begin startup meetings with subrecipients to discuss grant contracting, the details of your program, budget, scope of work, and other supporting information. WMCC staff will work with you and your organization to complete these startup requirements and begin work on your project or program within 90 days of your award. If all funding is not fully awarded in the first review cycle, a second review cycle will begin in summer of 2025 with review and scoring of applications, followed by award announcements and startup meetings in fall of 2025, with programs and projects beginning within that 90-day startup period after awards are announced. If additional review cycles are necessary beyond these 2, WMCC will make sure that we get the word out via our website, social media, newsletter, email blasts, our partners, just to make sure that we spread the word. And now, on to Krista.
Thank you, Krista. That is a wrap. That is a high to mid-level introduction to our grant programs and who is eligible and how you can apply and our timelines. And to see that there have been some really great questions coming through on the chat, and I want to open it up now to any question you have, if you have any that you want to talk about right now. And if you don't know how to raise your hand, it is under the React button. You have to click on the React button, and then there's a button to push raise hand, or you can just turn your mic off. There you go. Cindy, go ahead. Cindy Murray. Thank you.
Question about the dollars that are available for training on the septic grants there. What kind of training were you thinking about there?
Heidi, can I turn that one over to you if that's all right? Or is that putting you on the spot?
No, that's fine.
Yeah,
I guess the training is really open to anything related to septic education and maintenance. I don't know if there's a more specific question, Cindy, I don't know if we had any specific trainings in mind. It seems like there are a lot of people who don't know a lot about septic systems and septic maintenance and kind of the septic issues of Western Montana. Yeah, Cindy.
Yeah, I'm trying to be creative and brainstorm about this, but I do have here with the Evergreen Water and Sewer District. So, we have some training needs here for what I would call septic maintenance there. And it's both with contractors that we work with and also with our customers there too. So I'm going to put on my thinking cap. One of my consultants is here on the call too. And so anyway, we'll put on our thinking caps and start to brainstorm about this. But anyway, thank you. The presentation's real helpful. And that gives me, I don't think I have a lot of other questions there. I have a lot of questions, but I'll have better questions when I come up with more structured ideas here. So thank you. You've helped me.
Yeah, Cindy, I think that
Great.
that points, that's kind of a good point, is that we are looking for creativity in some of these projects as well, right? It's not just that you have to do what's been done. So that's exciting.
I guess I do have just one more quick question. And I bet I misread the slide, but it looked like it said that dollars were not available for capital funds, and maybe I am confused about that, but could you give me a little bit more explanation of that?
Krista, can we go back to the slide? I think and specific probably to the project too, isn't it? Anyway, capital is it's a pretty generic term of capital. We're thinking like renting office space or buying a truck or whatnot. But if your project requires building materials, that would be acceptable. And I'm happy for any of my colleagues to jump in and help clarify that response, if that makes sense as well. Cindy, does that answer your question?
So one of the things that I had in my mind was if we were looking at some kind of a learning center there, that would actually be a building constructed. So is that not something that would be covered by the grant?
Oh.
In my first thought of that, it doesn't sound like something that would be covered by the grant.
But we can dig in and really make sure. Casey, I don't know if you want to chime in on this as well to put you on the spot awkwardly, but yeah, it is our understanding that something like that would quite possibly not be eligible, but we can dig in and find out some more details and get back to you, Cindy, if that works.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree
Sure.
with what Heidi and Kristen said. First, just like very high level, it doesn't sound eligible under these grants, but like Kristen mentioned, I think it is worth continuing the conversation just to get a little bit more information and just double check that it isn't or is eligible. So that might be a good one for an individual meeting with one of our grant managers.
Sounds great.
Casey. All right. Does anybody else have any general questions or specific questions?
Or any project ideas that you'd like to share?
All right, Craig, thank you. Go ahead, Craig Erickson.
Can a community apply? For example, Thompson Falls has a fairly significant wastewater project. The $80,000 would connect approximately 16 households to their new central wastewater system, collection system. But could the town apply in multiple years for the same project? Because there's two phases and it will take approximately 2 years to complete the project. So could they apply in year one and then apply again in year two?
So one of the things that we're considering in the distribution of funds is geographical diversity. However, specifically, we would like to try and spread the funds out geographically. However, if there are funds left and nobody's applied, I would say throw a second application in and we will review it and consider all of the other parameters that are competing and get back to you. So just initially, though, we are looking for geographical diversity. But if there are funds left over, absolutely.
Does MHI and poverty rates are considered when you review these applications?
Yeah, that's part of the environmental justice piece that we were talking about. We will have a lot more information about the environmental justice, but it certainly does include those parameters, and they will rank better if you tick more of the environmental justice boxes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And I just want to talk about Toby Gierke's question. Sorry, I'm sure I just slaughtered your last name, but the question is, can an organization apply for more than one of these opportunities and work on those efforts concurrently? And Heidi has put in there that yes, absolutely you can. While applying for the same grant more than once is probably not ideal, applying for each grant is absolutely an option if you have a relevant project that would apply to those grant parameters. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Reading my mind, Krista. So we are going to work through a couple of specific questions just to make sure that we have everybody on the same page. Right now, we're wondering if you know how our team can assist you in preparing for these grant program applications. Does that make sense? You know what you can expect from us if we do offer assistance in helping you prepare. Does anybody have any questions related to what that might look like? Essentially, it is mine and Heidi and Krista's job to help you folks be successful. If you apply for one of these grants, we would love to be a part of the process before you apply so that we can talk to you about how to be more eligible and ensure that you write a really robust application. So just want to make it really clear that that is our job, and you can reach out with any question or any need for assistance, and we'll walk through that with you. Craig, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to circle back to something Heidi said at the top of this presentation. She mentioned a nonprofit that I think she said helps fund the connection of low-income housing to wastewater systems. I may have misunderstood that, but I would love to know what the name of that nonprofit is.
Yeah, Craig, I can get you the contact information. It was a gal from Missouri. I was at a national conference on wastewater treatment. And so, yeah, I was going to contact her as well because it was a very interesting.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about that. Thank you.
This is Cindy.
I know here in Missouri.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Cindy Murray
second,
asked
Cindy.
for the same thing.
Okay.
Same
I was just
info.
going to say, here in Missoula, we have the North Missoula Housing Cooperative, and I'm totally slaughtering their name. But they have also gotten grants for this very same thing to help like mobile home parks connect to municipal sewer supplies. So, you know, we have a private nonprofit, completely separate funding source here in Missoula that did exactly the same thing. So if you need another project partner or example to talk to, I can get you those contact details too, Craig.
All right. Any
NeighborWorks
information you can send me, we'll take.
NeighborWorks Montana also works with a lot of resident-owned communities as they either connect to municipal water and sewer or replace their failing septic systems too. And they're headquartered out of Great Falls, but they have projects all over the state similar to those. So we'll make sure that you all get that information as well.
Thank you.
Cindy, did we get your question answered? I didn't mean to talk over to you. I apologize.
Yeah, I apologize too for that. Actually, I just have the same request that Craig did. If you have contacts or you know, leads there for that kind of funding support, I'd like to get those too.
Okay.
And Krista, I didn't hear the group. I didn't hear the group that you were talking about there, but that I'd be interested in that one as well.
And Craig, have we answered your question as well? I see your hand is still up. Sometimes that happens.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
You're fine.
yeah, webinars and I don't get along, but no, you answered my question. And just to make a little pitch for Thompson Falls, we have a low income community where low-income residents are being asked to pay assessments that, for the most part, generally are in the $5,000 range. So it's a significant burden. So any resources that you can send our way that would help alleviate that for these low and moderate income people, we'd be very happy to learn about. So thank you.
You know, and that's a good segue into our next question. Are there any additional resources or information that any of you need to develop your application? So question here about example projects. Are there any other resources that folks think they might need in developing their application? All right, not going to let the awkward silence get too awkward. Our next question is about working with partners. As it relates to that, if you're working with partners, we will need letters to say that you're working together and make sure that there's an agreement in place, that the partners know that you want to work with them. So be thinking about that and what it might look like as far as getting the partnership solidified as you're applying for your application. And then we have this question: what other funding sources are you exploring for your project? You know, I think Craig brought up a really good point. He needs $160,000, and we may or may not be able to do that for him. But what other funding sources are you exploring? And keeping that in mind, that there will be a lot of cohesive funding matches out there that you could use to bolster your project, and be thinking about those sources now, and it will help you submit an even more robust application because it will show more sustainability for your project. But we just kind of wanted to cover some of these large general questions to get people's thinking caps going. Make sure you didn't have any specific questions for us right now, but as we said time and again, please always reach out if you have a question, even if you're not sure if it's a good one. We are here to help, and we want to see people be successful. All right, I think I'll pass it back.
All right. Well, since there are no more questions that we have right away, I guess I just wanted to mention that we also understand that our funding pots are not huge. And so we're expecting that our funding might be used up pretty quickly. And so that's one of the reasons why we've been trying to engage partners from the beginning, so we can really help you think about your application, get your application ready so it is ready to go in our tentative January date for our application period opening. So another way that we are going to be here to support that, throughout the month of December, we will be hosting office hours, the grant staff, and that means Kristen, and I. We'll be hosting some different office hours. And so if you have some more specific questions about your projects, please feel free to reach out to us and we can host you during one of those times. We're also working on a really exciting training with the rest of DNRC and then the Montana Association of Conservation Districts. We're trying to put together a grant application training that would happen at the beginning of December. And I know that's coming up pretty quickly here, and we'll have that information out hopefully as soon as possible. We're still kind of trying to figure out the specifics of it. But if you haven't gotten it yet, we are here to support you, and we are excited to help out. And we have all sorts of opportunities for you to engage with us. We just really want you to know that you can call us or email us or request an in-person meeting at any time, and we will do our best to get there as quickly as we can. We do cover the entirety of Western Montana, so it might just take us a little bit, but we are interested. Did I see another question in the chat? yeah, I don't know if you guys read that question, but we will have the specific dates once we release everything. We are kind of still trying to figure out the exact dates. So it will be an exact date versus a general date. Did I get that question right, other staff?
Yep, I think you did a good job, Heidi, on that. And just to be clear, right, these grants will be open on a rolling basis until all the funds are obligated and contracted out. So it's not necessarily that they're going to close when we start reviewing, but the anticipated process for this will be we'll open the grants. There will be a period of open time before any review occurs on the applications, and that will be dependent on which grant. So for example, the Showcase Green Stormwater Infrastructure grant, since that's a very large grant, we might provide a slightly larger initial open time before any review occurs. And then initial reviews will begin. And like Heidi mentioned, we will communicate those timelines as we finalize them and figure out what that will look like on the back end with several of our requirements as well. So just hope that provided a little more clarification there, and we'll keep in touch and also continue to update our website as we become more clear in exactly what those timelines will look like.
The date in January is still under consideration. We're really trying to pin it down, but we have a lot of moving parts. So we will share that information as soon as we can. But I want to share again, we don't have a ton of funding, so some things you can be working on, just, the general grant application is going to include a scope of work, the timeline or the schedule of the events, and then a budget. So if you're thinking of what you can be working on, you can always work on the scope of work, timeline, and budget. And then we'll get that information out about the grant writing training as soon as possible. I think maybe we could go to the last slide. Once again, we are really excited to work on all the different septic related projects. And we're also really excited to work on all the green stormwater infrastructure projects. GSI is something that isn't really that big in Montana, and we believe that it's a great solution for some of the stormwater issues people are having. And we really hope that these funds can help lead the way in getting some cool demonstration projects on the ground. And we're just really excited about all of it. Staff, do you have anything else? And does anyone have any other questions? Casey did just have a great idea that we will stick around here for another few minutes, just in case you do have a question that you didn't feel completely comfortable asking in front of everyone. So staff will stick around for a minute, but we want to thank you all again for taking the time out to learn more about these programs, and we can't wait to hear from you.